So we follow the camera as it tries to focus through you on the documentary at hand. Did the story start as one thing that evolved to what it became, or did you have it mapped out from the very beginning?
That's a great question. Okay, so the film began in my class, in my social change filmmaking class.
Okay.
We were talking about generative AI was just a buzz. It was like late 2022, November, which is when ChatGPT first hit the scene. So we're talking about this in my class and the environmental impacts and all this sort of stuff. And the students were enraged. They were like, fuck this. And they were just it was so heated that I was like, oh, there's something here. And, we got to the end of the conversation and I was like, well, what do we do about it? And they were like, we make art. And I took that. I remember going home and I was like, okay, this is I'm always the film is very much about generational responses to climate change.
Yeah.
The doom and gloom boomer, the anxious millennial, neurotic, information spouting millennial, and then these Gen Z characters that they show this kind of fart joke apathy, but then they're also the ones that are protesting and putting their bodies on the line. And so I saw that in that conversation where it was they had all this rage and then they manifest all of that through jokes and humor, and then they were we ride at dawn, and I was like, okay, all right, we need to make something.
That's awesome.
So I wrote a script, and in the script they had the whole beginning up to the camera being snatched, and then I wrote that Hallmark film, and then I had no idea what would come after it. And I knew that I wanted to make it about Lützerath, Germany, that specific site, because I had an artist in residence opportunity coming up and I was going to be nearby there. And so I was like, all right, I think this is enough for us to go into pre-production, and let's just see what we find when we go to Germany, and let's see what happens to AI as we're making the film, because that conversation's going to change. So we shouldn't write it now. And, and we always talk about that in the class, too, because I'm like, when's the time for action? And they're like, now! And I'm like, okay, well, filmmaking is slow, and we have no money, so it changed. The final portion with the protest footage was the last part to come into the story, and it was during a pro-Palestine encampment at my school, where a lot of the students that made the film were active in the protest and, felt very unsafe, and it was this time when the campus was really tense, and I had been sifting through all that archival footage, and I was like, oh, I don't need to riff on this, I think this is the move, just show what they're doing.
Your fascination with visual technique is your signature.
It is.
This film is partially about AI. What do you feel about the future of visual communication?
Well, listen, I think that it's going to be my time to shine. I think that this thing that I love, this schlocky failure of the hand and the vulnerability of the image that is not quite, I think that there's a tenderness there that AI is going to quickly polish over and move past, Right now AI is kind of funny because it fails, but that's not going to last very long. And so it's as it gets more slick, I actually want my thing to stay more and more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Vulnerable to the limits of my knowledge. I'm getting older, and I will know less and less every year. So I like that. I think that it's going to be. I'm an idealist, but I actually think that these really human forward, heart heavy, embarrassing, vulnerable, I don't know, these kinds of approaches to aesthetics that feel connected to touch are going to be what rises as everything becomes really synthetic, glossy.
As a teacher and creator, what are you observing about film students these days that are different than when you were studying?
Oh, well, Jesus, so much. A lot of how and why I teach is because of how I was taught. I came up in a time where, your professors would beat you down and expect that to be your hazing into the field, and then you had to build yourself up. And I'm a very neurodivergent, sensitive person, so I didn't really have the tools to build myself up, and it took a really long time. I remember after graduate school, it was 3 years of making films I didn't show anybody, because I had to stop feeling like I was being looked at so much. So anyway, very different time back then to now. With my students, I am in a rural school in a tiny city, and a lot of our students are like first gen, deeply passionate, big-hearted students, but they don't have like a clear path built for them into the industry, which is why I made this film, which is why I raised the money to pay them, which is why I got all these, I wanted them to have professional credits. I wanted them to leave with something that they could actually start to like, ride the wave off of. But to your question, sorry, I just care a lot about the humans.
I know.
I guess the biggest difference is their emotionality is very shifty, where I feel like, and I think that I mentioned that because this is a moment where it's like, make a film that people can watch while they're staring at their phone. Repeat the plot 7 times in case someone wasn't paying attention. There's this like push towards more obvious, blatant, and like in-your-face content that I see my students really resisting. Like, I think they want to like murk around. They want to say one thing but show you another, and they want it to be, like more theirs than maybe some of these like algorithms and formulas that like capitalism tells filmmakers they need to use.
Right.
And so I think that's what I see that's really exciting. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you are very passionate about your art. How does that play into what you think the purpose of life is?
Oh, well, you do this every time. I love this about you. Look, the energy has to go somewhere. I talk about it all the time. I think that climate control is about anxiety. It's like 1 minute you're like, you don't I don't name the AI until it's there, and then you're like, what is this? And it's already like gotten too chaotic by the time you ask that question, and then by the end you're tearing up. Like that high and low of emotion. The only place that I know where I can like do that without feeling self-conscious about being socially awkward or too much is in my film practice. And now I'm currently working, that's actually my co-director over there, Nicola Waugh. She produced Climate Control. She teaches with me. We are working on a dump musical, like a musical about trash, on trash, in our little like rural working class community. And it's like, as we're doing that, the music is being written by the producer of the Insane Clown Posse. It's just this like kind of raucous, like, working class spectacle. And I keep being like, wow, art, film, and music is when the body is like perfectly in line with spirit. Like when I'm doing those 3 things, like that's when I'm like, oh, I understand why humans are here. And it's really like, it's a feeling. It's like a frequency, it's a download. And it's the only way I feel acceptable in society. So,
You're amazing. What's the first thing you think about when you think about your love for creation and the use of cinema in that creation?
Guys, all these are anxious answers, but like I think about the frenzy of getting lost in flow, like I love to see an image and then like chase that image into a character and then chase that character into a context and then give that character, like something to brush up. I guess I'm talking about writing, but I'm not a writer. It's for me, it's more like a meditation or a dance, really. It's like moving from one thing to another. So yeah, I think that like that's where I start when I'm thinking about making, and that's where the making feels the most like divine, and like I said, like that kind of when you're in the channel is when I'm just like letting things flow in and saying hi to them and then being like, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, oh, we want to do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I sound like a hippie woo-woo person, but if that's just being honest, that's the answer is, that's the first thing I think about is trying to find flow.
This is Patrick McDonald for HollywoodChicago.com. Copyright 2026.